Hi everyone, today I'm standing in a sea of gadgets and utensils because I'm going to tell you all about the essential items I use in my kitchen on a weekly, on a daily basis to cook delicious food, and that makes it easier to do so as well. And when it comes to the bigger appliances, I will also give you some ideas of budget options, so I think we should just kick right into it. So the first thing I think you need in your kitchen are some good knives. For me, there are 3 types of knives that you need in your kitchen that are the essentials. It's a chef's knife, it's this bigger type knife. A paring knife, it's this smaller type knife that is good for peeling and such things. And then it's a bread knife. All of our knives are from a brand called Victorinox. It's a good bang for buck kind of brand, I would say. They are pretty affordable but have good quality. Of course, you could go for more expensive brands. The important thing is just that you have some good knives that are sharp. So if you can't sharpen them at home, go get them sharpened once in a while, because actually you're less likely to cut yourself with a sharp knife than a blunt one. So that's something that's good to remember. When it comes to the knives, this chef's knife is probably the one you will use the most. It does pretty much everything. So if you're gonna spend more money on something, I would do it on the chef's knife. And then when you have your knives and you're gonna go to cut something, you obviously need some cutting boards. And I like to have at least 2 cutting boards, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't want certain things to taste like onion and garlic. So for that reason, I use 2 boards. These are my favorites. I have a smaller one and a bigger one. On the bigger one, I cut pretty much everything, including onions and garlic. And on this board, I cut things that I don't want to taste like that. So fruits, for example. My mom actually does this the other way around. She has a small board in her kitchen that she cuts only onion and garlic, and then she can cut everything else on this board. Obviously, this doesn't apply really if you're cooking with meat in your kitchen, but here we cook only vegan food, so for us 2 is good. So going from something pretty basic to something a little bit more complicated, let's talk about a food processor. We use this huge machine that crushes pretty much anything you want to crush. It's great for hummus, it's great for banana ice cream, different kind of energy balls. You can do pretty much everything with this machine. We're using a Magimix here. That's the one that we thought looked the best when we did our research. And we spent quite a pretty penny on this thing. So this is more of a pricey option, but if you are going to invest in something in your kitchen, I think a food processor is a good thing to go for. Like I said, it does a lot of different things. You can even do nut butters and things like that in this machine. It also comes with smaller jugs, so you can adjust it to what you're making. But if you're not going to spend a whole bunch of money on a food processor, then I have another good option for you. When you buy an immersion blender, which is another thing that we use all the time here in our kitchen for blending soups and sauces and stuff like that, then you can buy it with this attachment that is like a mini food processor. So it comes with this little jug and a little blade, and you just detach the blade for the immersion blender and you attach the motor to the little. Normally this works. Anyways, you attach it to the little jug and you just use this as a food processor. You can do a lot of similar things in this little machine as you can in the big food processor, like hummus and energy balls. You're just gonna need to do them in smaller batches. The size of this is also really convenient. If you have a smaller kitchen, it won't take up a lot of space. But this is a great budget option. It's something we had in our kitchen for years before we invested in a bigger machine. The other big investment we made here in our kitchen is for a blender. We are using a Vitamix. It has a very powerful motor. It crushes ice, it crushes raw root vegetables. So you can really use it to make a lot of different sauces, smoothies, etc. People also use this to make nut butters and hummus and things like that. But for that, I actually much prefer the food processor. you're not gonna overwhelm the motor of the food processor the way you could with the blender doing those more thick and heavy things. But if you wanted to buy just one appliance, so you're really set on a blender and you want to be able to make nut butters and hummus and stuff like that in something like a Vitamix, then I would go for the bigger jug, because that will make that easier. If you don't want to spend as much money as a Vitamix actually is, then a good option could be something like a NutriBullet or a Nutri-Ninja. They are smaller and they blend things really well as well. They have pretty high wattage motors, so they're a good option. The one thing you can't do in those though is blend something that's hot. So for example, I use my Vitamix sometimes to make really smooth soups, and because you can remove this little attachment from the top here, it will let steam out. But when you have a NutriBullet or a Nutri-Ninja, that locks all the stuff into the jug and it won't be able to let out any steam. So there is it could explode basically. So remember that, don't do hot things if you do go for a smaller blender like a NutriBullet. Now that we've covered our more gadgety things, let's go back to the sort of very basic but necessary things for the kitchen, like pans and pots. And there are so many different frying pans on the market. Rob and I actually use 3 in our kitchen. The first one is a non-stick little pancake pan, because neither of us are that good at frying pancakes in any other pan. So actually this is pretty much our pancake pan. It has a non-stick surface. I also like to toast seeds in this because it's shallow and small, so I feel like it's a good option for that. Then we have 2 bigger frying pans that we use for everything else. And the first one is this carbon steel pan. It's a good option to a cast iron pan. It's a little bit lighter. As you can see, I can hold this with one hand without breaking my wrist. But it has the similar function. So after a while, it gets more of a non-stick surface, but you need oil and fats to cook with this pan. And you do want to cook things that are just frying without acid, because iron, cast iron and carbon steel aren't that fond of acid in the pan. So that's that pan. We love to use this for like mushrooms and veggies, and if we do vegan burgers and things like that, then this pan is the one we use. Then, because we can't use acid in this pan, we also have a stainless steel pan that is great for everything we can't do with the carbon steel pan. It's also a good size. This one is from ScanPan. It's a good quality brand. And we do stir fries in here, and we do pasta sauces and all sorts of stuff. It can also be a great idea to get a frying pan that has a matching lid, because that way you can always steam things in there if you wanted to, or boil them, of course, too. And then when it comes to pots, we have a few options here in our kitchen, but what I do think is important is just to have one bigger pot and one smaller pot. If you're just getting the essentials, I'd say that's pretty much all you need. We love our Le Creuset pot. It's very useful and versatile. It has an enamel coating on the inside, which makes it easy to cook with. But honestly, the pots we use the most are our stainless steel ones from IKEA. They are affordable and they're very functional. When you start cooking more from recipes and getting a little bit more experimental in the kitchen, or when you start baking, then you're going to need some measuring apparatus. And there are 2 types, I would say. There could either be a scale if the measurements come in grams. This is especially useful if you're baking, if you're making breads and cakes. Or the measurements will come in like cups, or here in Sweden we have deciliters. And for measuring jugs and spoons, I like these stainless steel ones. They last a lifetime, and these are just little measuring spoons. They always come in a set, and I have measuring cups, also stainless steel, that come in a set. And then here in Sweden, as I said, we use deciliters. So I have a little deciliter measurement, I have a half liter measurement, and I have a liter jug as well. well. And I think these bigger jugs are really useful when you're making soups and stuff, when you want to grab water from the tap and put it in the pot, and there's a little bit of space in between those two places. And when it comes to measuring jugs like this, at least these Swedish type ones, they are pretty easy to find secondhand. So it's always a good shout to check some secondhand shops when you're looking for kitchen equipment, especially if you're on a budget, because things like pans and pots can also be found there, and they can often be in very good quality. So that's a little tip. Moving on from the more straightforward, bigger appliances and single items, there are a lot of bits and bobs that make it easier to cook in a kitchen. And here they are. These are the ones that I use the most. And I guess I'll start with this one here. When I look at a box grater, I always feel like they come from the 70s. I don't know why they feel old school, but they are super useful for grating various things. Another option to the box grater that I like to use here in my kitchen is this microplane. It's great for grating things like ginger, lemon and lime, or any citrus fruit zest. You can even grate garlic on here. It's a easier to use little gadget than the box grater for things like that. Then for cooking, I love my wooden utensils. This is my favorite, the wooden fork thing. I love it when I fry things, to move things around. And then of course you need a little spoon for similar reasons, but also to serve food from your pots. A whisk is always good to have. You might need to whisk something. Then for frying things, you need a spatula. And when we talked about the pots, we need to now connect them to the spatulas, because if you're using non-stick pans, then you need plastic spatulas, and you can also use wood, of course, but I wouldn't use any metal because you don't want to scrape the surface. It's important for your health. But if you're using a stainless steel pan or a carbon steel or a cast iron, then these metal spatulas are perfect. These are, again, easy to find secondhand, at least here in Sweden. So it's a little tip to look there. Then something I really like using in my kitchen is this silicone spatula. You can actually use these in your frying pans as well. They won't melt. They're also great for scraping things out of your food processor or your blender or any bowl that you want to get the last little morsel out of. Then these are really useful. Then I think everyone needs a peeler. You never know when you're going to need to peel something, but they're also great for making nice ribbons out of carrots or cucumbers for salads, or if you're making little rolls of something. And I actually use this as well to make or cut or shave vegetables for salads. It's actually a cheese slicer, and of course I use it for vegan cheese as well. I think this is quite a Swedish little utensil, but it's great for shaving cabbage really finely. This is something that my mom taught me. It's really nice in cabbage salads to have really fine shavings, and then this cheese slicer is perfect for that. Another thing that is fun to use for salads is a julienne peeler. And if you don't know what a julienne peeler is, it is a peeler that looks pretty much like any other peeler, but it has little prongs on the blade, which means that when you slice it against the vegetable, it comes out in these little fine strips. So that's a really fun little thing to have. Not necessarily an essential, but if you like to have fun in the kitchen, which I do, then this is good. If you have a mandolin, it would also have an attachment which does the same thing. A mandolin is also really useful in the kitchen. Then my final little utensil, actually my second to last little utensil, is a garlic crusher. This one makes a lot of noise. It's really old. I got it from my mom. I like these old steel utensils. Like I said, they last a lifetime, and a garlic crusher just makes life easy when you're in a hurry. You don't need to stand there and chop little tiny garlic cloves. You can just put it in there and it'll crush it for you. And then the last thing in this little section here that I'm doing is a sieve. It's a great thing to have in your kitchen. You will need to drain and strain a bunch of stuff like canned beans, for example, which we eat a lot on a vegan diet. So definitely need one of those. And then when you've cooked all your lovely food and baked all your lovely biscuits and muffins, you need somewhere to store them. So I think storage containers are really important in a kitchen, but you don't need to spend a lot of money on this, I think. A great way of getting containers is keeping containers from things you've bought from the store. A great example of this is jars like this. They come in different sizes, and I even have a bottle here, which is great if you make your own sauces or you want to keep some seeds in it or whatever it may be. Then keep them. Remove the little label, clean them, and they're perfect to use in your kitchen for years to come, as long as you don't smash them on the floor. And other than that, I like these little snap lid jars. This is from IKEA. They're affordable, they're super airtight, which is good when you want to keep food fresh. And you can use this for dry food, but you can also use it for, stews, soups, things like that in your fridge. They're great for a variety of things. Another storage container I like that is also from IKEA are these glass containers with the bamboo lid that comes off quite like a suction. So this is also a good airtight option if you want to grab some of those. They're also good for stacking, so they'll stack really easily in your fridge and won't take up so much space. Then another little thing I really like and use in my kitchen are these small little plastic containers with a little screw lid, and they are really useful if you're sort of heading out and you want to bring a little pot of a sauce or a dressing or some seeds to sprinkle over something. Then they're great for that. And if you want a lunch box, then I think bento boxes are actually a really great option. They often have a few different compartments, so you can bring different dressings, different snacks, and separate things where you need to. The final item I want to show you and share with you is my lovely teapot. Of course, if you were a coffee drinker, then this is where the coffee apparatus would go. I don't drink coffee, Rob does, so if you want to hear all about coffee, you'll have to let him know in the comments. But I drink tea a few times a day, and I just love this teapot. A lot of you ask me about where it's from when you see it in my videos, and it's from a brand called Hario. We also have a kettle, a stovetop kettle from Hario that's really lovely. It's got a nice looking design and works really well. Same with this. What I love about this teapot is that it has this function where you pull the lever up and it folds back so that it brings the tea leaves up and away from the water. And this is important because you don't want your tea to steep for too long and become bitter or too strong. So this is just such a nifty design detail that they have made. And it's really easy to fill this little compartment up with tea leaves as well. And it looks really lovely. And those are the things that I use in my kitchen on a day-to-day basis. I hope you have got some good information from watching this video and that you feel that you can stock your kitchen up with the right equipment to cook yummy food and make hopefully some of the recipes from our channel. I hope you've enjoyed. I've enjoyed doing this video for you and sharing all the things that I love in my kitchen. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.